Reflection for Tuesday, May 6th. We've heard about food twice in our gospel reading since the beginning of May, and now again today. On Friday, the story of the multiplication of the loaves and fishes was read, and Sunday, we had Jesus standing by the Sea of Tiberias, having prepared a meal of grilled fish and bread for the disciples for breakfast. How human, how real. Yesterday, continuing our focus on the multiplication of the loaves and fishes in John's Gospel, we saw a crowd following Jesus across the sea to Capernaum because, as Jesus told them, "You are looking for me not because you saw signs, but because you ate the loaves and were filled." Then he tells them, "Do not work for food that perishes, but for the food that endures for eternal life, which the Son of Man will give you." Now today, the crowd is asking for a sign so that they can believe in Jesus, in a manner similar to the manna provided to their ancestors in the desert. It would seem they are still fixated on wanting somebody to feed them and sustain them in an earthly manner, perhaps a miracle worker who will, through manna, bread, food, give them a long and even carefree life. Who wouldn't want to be fed and not to have to worry about how and where the next meal is coming from, especially if you are not of the ruling class? But Jesus, being Jesus, is focused on their spiritual needs and his mission of helping them and us to understand who he is. In this, his bread of life discourse, he declares, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never hunger, and whoever believes in me will never thirst." There's little more basic in our lives than food, and Jesus gets that. Bread, the rich symbolism of bread, which sustains and enriches life. But do we get it? Or have we become nonchalant about that? How do Jesus' words resonate with us? For what do we hunger and thirst, given that we fortunate do not find our lives in danger for lack of food? An invitation here may be to remember the importance of food for each of us and our belief that we find the bread of life that Jesus tells us about in the Eucharist. Bread which sustains and enriches life. I am the bread of life. We are invited to remember Jesus being the bread of life at Mass as we come forward to share a meal of bread and wine, a meal of thanksgiving, remembering that Eucharist means thanksgiving, at one with each other in the assembly, leaving aside our differences as we walk together to the table. There is our bread of life. And as we move forward, we remember, are at one together in a moment, on a continuum of past, present, future, a community of believers who seek the bread of life. Like the crowd, we say, "Give us this bread always." And we receive that bread together. Eucharist is not so much adoring Jesus present in the bread and wine, but more importantly, our finding Jesus together with others, where we find life, the life of being with others, a life both a blessing and a challenge. Blessing in the joy we find with others, and challenge because as flawed human beings, living together, being together, is not easy. Yet, there you and I are, together, standing next to each other, whether we know each other or not, present at the table, where we find the bread of life. And once received, we go forward to actually live that belief in whatever context we find ourselves, in ways anticipated and unanticipated, in all the messiness of life. Can we then today reflect on Jesus being our bread of life, embracing what the day will bring, remembering in each encounter and event it is there that we find our God and our life?